We are chewing over what is being described by various pollsters as the worst election result for the Tories, local election result for the Tories in over 40 years. Now, let's go straight down to Westminster. Pat McFadden is the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. I imagine, Pat, you're feeling pretty good this morning. It's been a great night for the Labour Party. Absolute horror show for the Tories.
Yeah, my mood's a bit brighter than the weather here. It's pouring with rain, but we've had great results overnight, both in local elections and in the parliamentary by-election in Blackpool, where we got a really stunning victory with a 26% swing, and that's the critical kind of parliamentary seat that will help to decide the next election. So we're very pleased with the results overnight, and they show a real mood and a desire for change in the country.
Do you see that Blackpool victory as a kind of the first brick in the wall, as it were, the first brick in the red wall that you can then go ahead and kind of take into a wave?
Well, we've been doing well in by-elections for the last year and a half or so. I mean, I think of Rutherglen up in Scotland, I think of Selby, Kingswood, Wellingborough, now Blackpool. You know, we've had a lot of really good by-election results, and they give us heart and they give us confidence. But of course we are aware the real test is yet to come in the general election, whenever the Prime Minister calls it.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, we haven't heard from the Tories this morning. I'm going to be speaking to Richard Holden, who's going to come in to our studio here shortly, out of the rain. You got a message for him?
I'm wondering why he got the dry interview in the studio and I'm standing in the rain, but that's up to you guys.
You're very welcome,
Look, I think if I was in their shoes, I think if I was in their shoes, you know, I'm not sure what they can do, because after 14 years, there is a mood that the government's out of time and out of speed now, and I'm not sure there's much they can do about it. But we'll keep on fighting from now until the general election, because, you know, winning the trust of the people is not an easy thing to do, and we take it very seriously, and we know we have to work hard to get that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt, and a lot of people are making the comparison to 1997. I'm not necessarily doing that, but a lot of people have just had enough of the Tories. They've been in so long, whether you regard them as having done a good job or a bad job, people just do get fed up in political cycles, don't they? Because, I mean, one of the things that I get asked a lot by my callers and by my viewers here is, well, what exactly did the Labour Party stand for? And, I mean, if you could tell me what the Labour Party stands for in, 30 seconds or a minute, why don't you do that?
Well, we stand for turning the page on all the chaos of the last 14 years, and the policy priorities are the ones that we've set out. So we want to get the NHS waiting list down. We've got a policy for 700,000 new dental appointments. We want to build 300,000 houses a year, and we made important recent announcements on bringing the railways back into public ownership, and we want better rights for people at work. Those are all good changes, and good changes worth voting for when people get the chance to do so. A
couple of chinks in the wind so far. One in Oldham I've been drawn to, which looks like a lot of independent councillors have won victories there, and it hasn't been a good night for Labour because of Gaza and because of what you might call external issues. Is that something that's going to worry you going forward into the general election?
It has been a factor in some places. And there's no point in denying that. And I understand why people feel strongly about this issue, because thousands of innocent people have been killed over the last 6 months, and people want it to stop, and so do we. But with regard to Oldham that you mentioned there, Gaza may be a factor there, but it's not the only one, because that particular council has had results that have been out of line with the national picture for a few years now. I mean, we were losing seats in Oldham last year and the year before when Gaza wasn't an issue either, so it may be partly that, but there's hyper-local factors in Oldham which have just knocked it out of line with the national picture for a few years now.
Right. And as far as the Labour Party readiness for government is concerned, that's another question that a lot of people ask me about. I see that the newspaper says this morning David Lammy and others in the Labour Party are already talking to Team Trump. He's going to have to do a bit of backtracking on some of the things he said before about Donald Trump, isn't he?
Well, look, it's up to the American people who they elect as president, and The attitude that we would take if we were in power would be to work with whoever they chose. America is a critical ally for the UK. I believe that relationship is much more important than the personality of whoever is president at a single time. It runs much more deeply in terms of defence interests, common values, the history that we've got together. So I think it's a relationship that will endure whoever the American people choose to elect as their president.
And just one final one, Pat. What is the Labour Party policy on Rwanda and on immigration? We've seen the Home Office try to remove people from a hotel in Peckham yesterday, only to be stymied from doing so by a load of protesters. Labour Party have said that they wouldn't honour the Rwanda flights, they would cancel them. But lately they've been a bit softer on that. What's your position on it exactly?
We don't think this Rwanda policy will work. I mean, they might get some flights off. I think they will get some flights off between now and the election, and they'll be determined to do that. But even if that happens, it'll only apply to probably people in the hundreds rather than the tens of thousands that are in the backlog and that are coming. So we think the money would be better used on properly fighting the criminal gangs that are organising this trade in people right across Europe and Asia. This is a big international operation and it needs to be treated as such and fought in that way. And we think that's the better way to use the resources that are available to fight this.
And would you offer an amnesty to those who are already here then?
No, no. We wouldn't offer an amnesty. I mean, there is a kind of amnesty in place in the sense that there's tens of thousands of people in these hotels costing £8 million a day to put up. And the government has no plan to process them or deal with them whatsoever. But we wouldn't offer an amnesty. We think that the best way to deal with that backlog is to make a decision on people and decide whether or not they've got a right to be here. At the moment, that's not happening. They're just stuck with the taxpayer paying the bill.
Okay.